Hey everyone, before we dive in, if you love emotional family drama with jaw-dropping twists, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a story. I always knew funerals could bring out the ugliest side of people, but I never thought my own brother would turn our dad's passing into a weapon against me. I'd barely taken 2 steps down the aisle when Ethan's voice sliced through the quiet like a knife. She's only here for the inheritance. Dad was about to write her out completely. Head snapped toward me. Whispers exploded. My face burned, but I froze in place. I wasn't about to let him make me feel small. Then the back doors swung open. The family attorney, Mr. Carter, walked in carrying a tiny flash drive. Every conversation died instantly. You could feel the whole room hold its breath. Whatever was on that drive definitely wasn't part of the program. My name is Ava Reynolds. Before that afternoon in the church, I actually believed heartbreak made people kinder. I thought losing someone would remind a family what really matters and pull everybody closer. But standing under those colored glass windows while Ethan tried to erase my whole life in one sentence, I realized I'd been dead wrong for years. It hadn't always been this way. When I was a kid, Dad used to wake me up before the sun on Saturdays, whispering, "Boots on, kiddo, adventure time." We'd drive to the coast with the windows halfway down so the salty air could rush in. He taught me how to bait a hook, how to sit still and patient, how to really listen to the silence on the water. Those mornings felt like the safest spot on earth. Sometimes he'd hoist me up on the pier and point straight out and say, "See that line where the sky meets the sea? That's how big you're allowed to dream." I believed him with my whole heart. Everything shifted the day I chose art school instead of the business degree he'd mapped out for me. I still remember how his shoulders locked up when I told him I'd been accepted to a fine arts program instead of studying finance. He didn't raise his voice. Dad hardly ever did. He just got quiet in that heavy way that made the whole house feel colder. Ethan jumped right into the silence. "She'll grow out of it," he'd laugh to relatives, like he was doing me a solid. "It's just a little phase." Except it wasn't a phase at all. As the years went by, the gap between Dad and me stopped feeling accidental. Phone calls went straight to voicemail. Texts vanished into thin air. I'd mail him prints of my paintings, city skylines inspired by the buildings he'd put up all over Boston, and weeks would pass with zero reply. I kept telling myself he was swamped at work, that he didn't mean it, that we'd patch things up someday. Someday just kept sliding further out of reach. Moving to New York made the distance even fuzzier. I flew home when I could, but every time I showed up, Ethan was already deep in some big conversation with Dad about a new deal or expansion. They'd stop talking the second I walked in. Ethan would slap my back a little too hard and crack, "Still finger painting." "Huh?" Everyone would chuckle except Dad, who'd just give that tight, polite smile you give strangers in an elevator. By the time Dad's health started failing, nobody even bothered to tell me. I found out from a second cousin who thought I already knew. When I called the house, Ethan picked up and said Dad was sleeping, that stress was bad for him, and maybe I should give him some space. I swallowed that excuse too. But sitting in those pews while my brother hurled accusations loud enough to bounce off the stone walls, something inside me finally snapped into focus. For the first time, I wondered if the distance I'd been fighting wasn't between me and Dad, but between me and the truth. I stayed glued to my seat after the service while everyone filed past in waves of side eyes and whispers. Old family friends suddenly found their coats fascinating. Ethan didn't even pretend to be subtle. He stood up front with Uncle Ray and Aunt Clara, talking just loud enough for his voice to carry. She never visited, never called, only crawls out of the woodwork now that there's money involved. Every word hit like he'd practiced it for years. My best friend Sophie squeezed my hand. "You don't have to sit here and take this," she whispered. But walking out would only prove him right, so I stayed. As I watched him soak up the attention, all the pieces I'd ignored for years started clicking together. The unanswered calls, the invitations I never received, the time I flew in for Dad's birthday, only to find out the party had been moved and nobody told me. I'd sat in that rental car and cried, convinced Dad was ashamed of me for chasing a dream he couldn't understand. Now, watching Ethan smirk under the soft church lights, the truth yanked hard. Someone had been feeding Dad a fake version of me for years, and that someone was standing 10 feet away straightening his tie like he already owned the world. At the reception, I forced myself to walk through the crowd. People parted like I was radioactive. One of the company board members gave me a stiff smile. Your brother really carried everything these last months. He stepped up big time. Stepped on everyone else was more like it. Aunt Clara swooped in at the dessert table, voice dripping with fake pity. It must be so hard coming back after being away for so long. I wasn't away, I said quietly. She blinked like that possibility had never been programmed into her. Then I overheard Ethan by the door telling someone, Dad wanted the distance. She made her choices. My lungs forgot how to work. That wasn't Dad talking, that was Ethan. Something inside me bent, slow, burning, permanent. The real turning point came when Mr. Carter found me in the corner. For the first time all day, his eyes looked genuinely kind. Ava, he said softly, there's something you need to know before tomorrow. Tomorrow, the reading of the will. For the first time since I'd walked into that church, a tiny spark flickered that didn't feel like pain. More like the story Ethan had been selling. Everyone was about to meet someone who actually knew the truth. I barely slept. The hotel room was too sterile, too quiet, like it belonged to someone whose whole world wasn't falling apart in slow motion. Sophie showed up at sunrise with coffee and her favorite travel hoodie. You look like you fought the ceiling and lost, she teased. Pretty much, I admitted. She sat next to me. What did the lawyer say? Just to brace myself. She nodded like she already knew. Something big is coming, and it's not from Ethan. By mid-morning, I walked through Boston toward Dad's house, the one I hadn't stepped inside in years. The cold air smelled like winter and old memories stacked on top of each other. The housekeeper opened the door with a small, warm smile. Your father talked about you all the time, she whispered. I almost lost it right there on the doorstep. Dad's office looked frozen in time. Same neat stacks of paper, same big leather chair. On the desk sat an old photo of Ethan and me as kids, sunburned and sticky with ice cream. Next to it, just empty space where another picture used to be. I stared at that blank spot way too long. That afternoon, Mr. Carter met me privately in his downtown office. He looked exhausted in a way only the last few months could explain. Tomorrow is going to be rough on a lot of people in that room, he said gently. But not on you. I didn't understand. Your father made some major changes. You'll see tomorrow. Every question I asked hit a wall. Finally, I just blurted, did Dad really want me gone? Did he stop loving me? Mr. Carter shook his head hard. Whatever you've been told about your father's feelings did not come from your father. That night, for the first time in years, a tiny boundary started forming inside me. Thin but unbreakable. Whatever happened tomorrow, Ethan was never going to speak for me again. I got to the conference room early the next morning, hoping the empty hallway would calm my nerves. It didn't. Ethan's voice leaked through the cracked door, cocky and loud. Dad knew who was really loyal. Today we just make it official. My stomach flipped, but I pushed the door open and walked in. The room went dead silent. Every seat around the long table was taken. Board members on one side, relatives on the other. Ethan parked at the head, like he'd already won. I took the only empty chair, the one as far from him as possible. He smirked. Wow, you actually showed up. Bold move. At exactly 10 o'clock, Mr. Carter walked in with a folder under one arm and that same little flash drive in his hand. He set it on the table like it was a live grenade. Ethan's tone went sharp. What's that supposed to be? Your father insisted, Mr. Carter answered calmly. He plugged it into the projector. The screen lit up, and there was Dad, looking stronger and healthier than he had in years, sitting in his home office in his favorite navy suit, staring straight into the camera. Hello, he said softly. If you're watching this, I'm gone. Every person in the room turned to stone. Even Ethan's smug grin collapsed. I asked Harold to play this, so there can be no misunderstanding, no rewriting what I wanted. His eyes were clear, steady, impossible to twist. I want to start with my daughter. Ava, if you're in the room right now, I'm sorry. The apology hit me so hard I forgot how to breathe. I'm sorry for the years we lost, for believing lies I should have questioned, for letting other people speak for you instead of listening to my little girl myself. Tears blurred everything, but I didn't dare blink. 6 months ago, after a health scare, I started working from home. One day I went looking for files in Ethan's office and found a drawer full of letters addressed to me. Birthday cards from you, invitations to your gallery shows, notes you'd sent over the years. All of them hidden, all of them unopened. Gasps ricocheted around the table. Ethan shot to his feet. That's a lie. Mr. Carter's voice cracked like a whip. Sit down. Dad kept talking from the screen. That discovery made me dig deeper. I hired a private investigator. What he found broke my heart. Calls from Ava intercepted, voicemails erased, messages answered in my name without my knowledge. Ethan's face went ghost white. Dad leaned closer to the camera. No, son. I was perfectly clear-headed. The investigation also uncovered something far worse, shady practices inside the company. Cheap materials approved for major projects, doctored inspection reports, permits forced through illegally. Board members looked like they were going to be sick. Dad's voice turned soft again. Ava, I wanted to fly to New York, see your world, fix everything in person. If I didn't get the chance, I needed you to hear it from me. I am so proud of you, of your art, of your courage, of the beautiful life you built. I was crying so hard I could barely see. As for my estate, he continued, and the room froze solid. My old will left the company and most assets to Ethan, with a small trust for Ava. That will no longer stand. I've replaced it. Ethan puffed up, ready to gloat, then deflated when Dad kept talking. To my son Ethan, I leave a trust of $500,000, paid out yearly only if he fully cooperates with an independent ethics investigation and completes a business integrity program. Ethan choked. This is insane. This is fraud. To my daughter Ava, I leave the family home, my personal investments, and 51% controlling ownership of the company. She may lead it, appoint leadership, or sell her shares, whatever she decides. The room exploded. Aunt Clara gasped. Uncle Ray stared at Ethan like he'd never seen him before. Dad's voice rose gently above the chaos. Ava, I know it's a huge responsibility, but you have the honesty this company desperately needs right now. You see the world without cutting corners, and I trust you completely. Then he leaned back, smiled the way he used to on the pier, and said the 3 words I'd waited years to hear again. I love you. The screen went black. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Ethan lost it. This is ridiculous. She doesn't know the first thing about running a company. She's a painter. Dad wasn't in his right mind. A board member cut him off, furious. You hid letters. You falsified reports. Do you even understand what you've done? Ethan backed toward the door, pale and shaking. You're all turning on me now? I stood up slowly. My voice came out calm, steady, stronger than I'd ever heard it. No, Ethan. You did that to yourself. He stared at me, stunned. For the first time in my life, my brother looked small. He stormed out and slammed the door so hard the glass shook. Nobody followed him. Mr. Carter closed his folder. Let's proceed with the legal documents. Someone finally broke the silence. Ava, congratulations. I didn't feel like celebrating yet, just steady. Like the story finally belonged to me again. In the weeks that followed, everything happened in pieces. Meetings, paperwork, hushed hallway talks. But underneath it all was this quiet new stillness, like the whole world had shifted 1 inch and only I could feel it. Moving into Dad's house hurt more than I expected. His coat still hung by the door. A coffee mug waited in the sink. In his desk, I found an envelope with my name in his handwriting. Inside was a short note that wrecked me all over again. He'd been following my exhibitions online, loved the way I saw color and light, wished he'd told me every day how proud he was. At the company, some people tiptoed around me, unsure how to treat the artist's daughter who suddenly owned the majority. Others stopped by my new office just to quietly say they were relieved real change was finally coming. As for Ethan, word is he left Boston. No forwarding address, no apology. And honestly, I'm not even angry anymore. There's just open space where something honest can finally grow. Standing on the back porch of the house one evening, watching the winter sun sink over the yard where we used to build snowmen, the silence didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like it was finally mine. Dad's truth had shattered every light Ethan built between us. And what was left was simple, My life, the company, the legacy, they're all responsibilities, sure, but they're also a fresh start built on honesty. If you've ever had to fight your way back to the truth, drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you love this roller coaster, please subscribe and turn on notifications so we can do this again real soon.